The leather slipped from my clutch, and a page of my diary lay face up on the polished floor. A bridesmaid crouched and read the sentence I had meant only for ink and midnight. Doubt was the first word I wrote about that night, and doubt sat heavy in my mouth as the woman straightened and kept the page between two fingers. She did not hand it back. She showed it to the woman beside her with a quick, scandalized whisper. Conversation around me paused like a record touched by a finger. I grabbed at the diary before the pair could step away. I felt my fingers slide along the edge of the paper, and then pull back when a champagne glass scraped the ballroom tile with a bright, accusing sound. Maya's hand found my elbow. She tugged me out of the cluster of guests. My pulse was a staccato under the chiffon of my dress. When I say doubt, I mean the exact, cold thought. Had I been performing all these months for an audience that understood nothing of me? That doubt pushed me across the reception corridor faster than shame did. We stood in the doorway where the music thinned. Ethan was there as if he had always been waiting at the edge of light, a practiced smile in place, hands folded at his sides. He watched me with the same steadiness he reserved for speeches. His eyes did not widen, but I felt their steadiness cut the room into public and private. I moved to tuck the diary back into my clutch, and his hand landed on the cover a second later. "Claire," he said. Quiet enough that the chorus of guests could not follow, but hard enough that it made the air between us turn exact. What happened? My hands trembled. I forced a small smile that I had used 1,000 times in rehearsals for family dinners and boardroom lunches. It fell. I said, Maya's voice came close and sharp. "Claire, show me." Maya put a hand on my back and guided me to a quieter corner. Her eyes searched my face the way she always did when she wanted the truth without ceremonial waiting. The bridesmaid was still watching from the hallway, a folded page between her fingers and a new interest in the conversation she had found. In 5 minutes we were back in our apartment, the city below us a scattered string of headlights. I carried the diary to the balcony and opened it where the early air would not disturb ink. I read the line the bridesmaid had read. "I keep smiling because it is safer than asking for help." The words tasted like copper. The emotion root for the night, doubt, throbbed under my ribs and shaped every small move I made. I set the diary on my knees and touched the thin gold band I kept hidden in a drawer. The ring felt like a warm, weightless coin. I wrote anyway. My pen cut the paper with short, deliberate strokes. I wrote about the reception, how I had laughed when people said, "How perfect you look, Claire," and how the laughter felt rehearsed in my jaw. I wrote that Ethan's hand on my back during the bouquet photo had felt more like a guide than a partner. I wrote, in plain lines, "I am not sure this is love." That line was concrete. It was not melancholy. It was a decision that I did not know how to speak aloud. The next morning, Maya met me at a small cafe with stained wooden tables and strong coffee. She set down a cup and did not wait for me to drink. "Claire," Maya, and called my name like a warning. "You left a page of your diary on the floor." Someone read it. "I know," I replied, hands wrapped around the hot ceramic. "A bridesmaid." She read a line and showed it. My voice did not rise. There was a steadiness in me that surprised me. It came from the pen strokes of the night before. Maya leaned forward and put both hands on the table. "Claire, you said you felt like you were performing. You it in ink. What are you going to do about it?" Her question landed like a tool on an unglued seam. I felt doubt shift into another feeling, exposure. I pictured the bridesmaid reading that sentence and passing it along like a folded note. Exposure moved me. It made my fingers curl around the coffee cup. "I don't know," I said. "I could ask Ethan. I could hide it. I could leave." Maya's eyes hardened in a way I trusted. "Then don't perform. Tell him tonight, or at least tell him tomorrow. Don't speak through a smile. Speak through your mouth." Her language was blunt. It cut away the polite corridor I had been standing inside. We left the cafe with a plan that felt thin but real. I would not let silence make my choices for me. I would not let other people read my private sentence and decide what it meant for me. Over the next days the routine continued, errands, fittings, small meetings, and the doubt stayed close, migrating into a steady H. I noticed how often Ethan's phone buzzed beside his plate, and how he would glance at the screen and answer with one-sentence replies. He answered the guests' questions about our future with phrases that sounded rehearsed. We re-excited for the next step. His voice was low and careful. It widened the distance in a way I could name. Composed, polished, closed. The charity gala came a week later. I wore a cream slip dress that moved from morning to evening without fuss. The hall smelled of roses and wax. Hands met, small talk moved along the tables, and I watched Ethan step to the stage and give a statement about our plans. He spoke clearly, cited the foundation's work, and mentioned our upcoming engagement announcement with an even cadence. People applauded. I clapped with them. Watching him there, speaking for both of us to a crowd, I felt doubt harden into a new, angrier feeling. Betrayal. Betrayal does not always arrive with fireworks. For me, it arrived in a small, clinical exchange at the edge of the stage. Ethan stepped off and was immediately met by his premanager, a woman whose role I knew by name because she had appeared at several events with him. She handed him a document and he folded it and kept it close to his chest. A waiter brushed past with a tray and a champagne flute tilted. I caught both their eyes for the length of a breath. Ethan's expression did not soften in the way it had once. His hand moved with the motion of someone solving a problem, not someone seeking comfort. I understood in a cold, practical way that he kept a role for the public and another role in private. I walked over. "Ethan," I said, and forced the syllable into the sound of normal conversation. He turned with the same calm. "Ethan, did you see the article about Gabriel's art donation?" "Yes," he said. I coordinated the mention with Purr. "It looks good." He smiled at me with the practiced smile that had started to feel like a prop. "And what about us?" I asked. The words came out shorter than I meant. He blinked once. "What about us, Claire?" Maya arrived behind me. "Ethan," she said, and she did not wait for an introduction. "Claire left a page of her diary at the reception last week. A bridesmaid read it. I'm sure you noticed people talking." Ethan's jaw tightened. For a second his face shifted, something like calculation, then containment. He stepped back and folded his hands. "I handled it, Maya. I spoke with the team. I prefer to manage public narratives privately. Manage public narratives privately." Maya's voice rose a fraction, precise and blunt. "Claire's private writing is not a press release." Ethan's reply was quick. A few words that tried to steer the conversation away. "We need control. An uncontrolled line can damage." Damage what, Ethan?" I interrupted. "You say control like a product. This is my life." My fingers curled into the fold of my clutch. I felt betrayal expand into anger that moved in my limbs. Ethan gave a calm, measured answer. "I want us to be safe, Claire. Public narratives matter to my work. I can't have speculation." His voice did not crack. It did not feel like protection. It felt like a boundary built from blunt wood. 3 guests came to the edge of the stage and smiled into their phones. The mood resumed around us. An external event, a glass falling on a tray nearby, broke our circle for a beat. And in that break I saw the premanager slip a folded page into her purse. The sight was a small trigger. I felt a second emotional shift, from betrayal to alarm. Alarm made my throat tight. I imagined the diary lines reshaped into rumor. That night, after the gala noise thinned, I came home and found a note folded beneath our apartment door. It was a short, typed line. "We should talk." Ethan had left the note, signature absent. I held it like an accusation and then unfolded it. The concrete words were all I needed. They pulled me to the apartment living room where the lamp threw a pool of light across the sofa. The living room felt too polished and too practiced. When Ethan arrived, he closed the door gently and dropped his keys into the bowl by the entrance with a soft clink. He stood by the window for a long moment with a glass of water. "Claire," he said. "Steady, we need to talk about last week." "Yes," I said. I moved so the diary was on the table between us. I wanted the paper to be visible. I wanted its presence to be real and not an accusation whispered later. We were both calm. Calm, in this case, was not peace. It was a containment of sharp things. I opened my mouth and then closed it. I remembered Maya's words in the cafe. I remembered the bridesmaid's finger on the page. I lowered my eyes and spoke the sentence I had written into my diary. "I don't know if this is love, Ethan. Sometimes I feel like I'm performing." There was a beat of silence long enough to notice the sound of the thermostat. Ethan's hands tightened around his glass. "Claire," he said, and 3 quick lines followed as if someone had switched the channel from a slow show to a rapid-fire list. "I manage the press," he said. "I handle expectations," he said. I don't want speculation about us to hurt the projects I'm working on. So you keep me at a distance because you're afraid of what people might say?" I asked. The words were measured but sharp. "It's not that simple, Ethan. I thought if I kept things steady, we would be safe." He paused, and the pause brought with it a small, revealing detail. He looked at the diary on the table as if seeing it for the first time. "I saw a page of it last week," he admitted, at the reception. "I didn't tell you because I wasn't sure how to explain it." The admission landed like a small, unexpected twist. I had assumed he had not seen my writing. I had shaped my anger around that assumption. Now the truth changed the shape of the night. My doubt widened into something I could name: confusion. I needed to know whether his distance had been choice or defense. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. My voice was quieter. I searched his face for a sign of regret. "I thought I could fix the problem before it became a problem," he said. "I thought if I controlled the narrative, I was protecting you." "Protecting me from what?" I asked. My fingers tapped the table. The diary lay between us like a small, stubborn witness. Ethan looked away from gossip, from pressure, from people who would try to make decisions for us. "So the thing you did to protect me was to ignore my voice," I said. The words cut closer than I expected. His mouth formed an answer and then stopped. The next part of the confrontation became faster, the kind of exchange Maya had warned me about. Short lines, heat building. "Claire, control keeps us steady," he said. "Claire, you don't understand how this looks to others. Claire, we can manage this." "Ethan, managing isn't the same as listening." "Claire." We had 3 to 6 back and forth lines that felt sharp and real. Each line revealed a small, important truth. His vocabulary was about risks and optics. Mine was about honesty and voice. I said his name with a different cadence each time to make him follow my words. "Ethan, listen. Say my name and listen to me." He did. He repeated my name and inhaled as if that action bought him time. His voice slowed. "Claire, I'm listening." The admission was simple, but it was the first time in weeks I felt him move toward me instead of away. I told him about the bridesmaid and about Maya's blunt question. I told him I had felt unseen and that my diary had been a way to contain the truth until I could speak it out loud. He leaned forward and placed his hands on the table near the diary. He did not touch the pages. Instead, he told me a detail about his work. A literal email he had received from a reporter pressing for a story. He showed me on his phone a message that asked if our engagement was purely strategic. The message was concrete and small. It explained why he had started to think in terms of management. A new shift moved through me, from confusion into a clearer anger that contained a small, practical question. Could we make a decision together? I pressed for specifics. "Ethan, so what do you want us to do when people talk? Do you want me to hide my feelings?" He answered in a way that surprised me. "I want us to be honest, but not careless. I want to protect your privacy, Claire. I don't want someone to make you the headline." His voice was soft and careful. I looked at him and weighed his words against what I had felt for months. Protection and control had been twisted together for him. For me, they had separated into 2 opposite paths. The argument settled into a shape we could touch. One of us prioritized external steadiness. The other prioritized inner truth. We did not resolve everything that night. We did, however, reach a moment of concrete decision. I placed the diary on the table and opened to a fresh page. I wrote 2 lines slowly. I wrote, "I will speak. I will not let a missing word be someone else's script." Then I set the pen down and called Maya. Her voice was immediate on the other end. "Claire, I'm taking time," I said. "I need a few days to figure out what I want to say and how to say it. I won't perform." "Good, Maya. Tell Ethan what you need. If you want help, say so." After I hung up, I folded the thin gold band into my palm and put it into a small drawer beneath the kitchen sink. It was an action not of finality, but of deliberate separation. The band was not lost, but it would not be part of my daily speech. The chapter of the night closed with a small, physical choice that matched the words I had written. At dawn, I carried the diary to the balcony. The air had the bare taste of the city before people woke. I left the diary open on the railing and slid the drawer closed where the ring lay. I did not write a promise about a new beginning. I wrote instead a clear note to myself. "I will speak honestly when I am ready." Then I walked away from the railing and from the apartment door, and the door clicked softly behind me. That click was the final, concrete beat of the chapter. A small sound that marked a movement I could repeat tomorrow, one honest sentence at a time. My phone vibrates against the silk of my pillow and lands face up with a scatter of light across the screen. Screenshots arrive so fast I lift the phone with shaking fingers, and the first line I see is the sentence someone read aloud at the party. Doubt sits heavy in my mouth the way cold metal sits when you close your palm around it. I read the sentence again. I read the sender names. My throat makes a small, dry sound, and I throw the duvet back because there is nothing else to do but get up. I open the bedroom door and the hallway light catches on champagne flutes in the living room, left from the rehearsal the night before. The apartment looks staged for a photograph. I slide my feet into slippers and scroll through screenshots. Lena's hand flat on the page, a cropped angle of my handwriting, a highlighted sentence someone has circled with an emoji. The screenshots are time-stamped from the party an hour before. The conflict is clear. A private confession is now a public file being passed around people who will demand explanations. Doubt is my first, immediate reaction. Doubt makes me check the drawer where I hid the diary twice before I remember the memory I still carry from the reception. The leather slipped from my clutch and a page of my diary lay face up on the polished floor. A bridesmaid crouched and read the sentence I had meant only for ink and midnight. I force myself to picture that exact moment. The leather corner folded back, Lena's thumb on my handwriting. The memory is a concrete detail I will use to hold the rest of the day together. The stakes sit in front of me in plain language. If the diary entry stains the engagement image, arrangements will change, people will speak to publicists, and Ethan's family will demand a version of events. I make coffee because my hands are too loud otherwise. While the kettle boils, I open messages and see Ethan's mother typed in all caps in the family chat asking where the screenshots came from. Appearances must be controlled, the tone reads. That line lands like a hand on the back of my neck. I leave the apartment door unlocked and call Maya before I even sip the coffee. Maya answers on the second ring with her usual breathless cadence. "Claire, what's happening?" she says. "Claire." I say, "There's a leak." A page from my diary is circulating. Show me now." Maya says, "Send everything. I will come." She does not wait for details. She says my name a second time the way she does when she is already moving. Her voice makes me straighten. I gather my clutch, my worn leather diary that I keep hidden under a stack of receipts, and the phone. I lock the door behind me even though I will be back in minutes. Doubt shifts into a new feeling, fear, and that fear has a muscle memory. Check everyone who had access at the party. Check Lena, check the bridesmaids, check Ethan's circle. At the dining table, a stack of printed invitations sits at Ethan's mother's place. When I open the door to the small dining room of our apartment, Ethan stands with his palm on the table and his face composed. He looks at me with the same calm precision he wears to meetings. He says, "Claire, your phone is lighting up." "Yes." I say, "Screenshots from last night." Ethan takes the phone from my hand the way a surgeon takes a tool, careful and fast. He reads a single screenshot, his jaw a controlled line. "Who had access to your clutch?" he asks. The question is not accusatory, it is a logistical inquiry. His voice is low, calm, deliberately composed. "Lena did." I say, "She crouched and read a page." He nods once. His mother watches with a small frown and folded hands. Ethan says, "We will manage this. Public impression matters." "Ethan," I say, and my voice tightens. "It is not only the image. Someone took pictures. Someone uploaded them." He looks at me then, and for a second there is a flash in his eyes that I cannot read. He answers with controlled brevity. "Then we find the source. We remove the screenshots where we can." Maya arrives before noon, her camera bag slung over her shoulder though she has not put a finger to her camera. She moves straight to the table and lays her phone, 3 notepads and a small stack of receipts down like tools. "Claire," Maya says, and she leans forward. "Tell me everything." I tell Maya the exact sequence. The clutch, the spilled paper, Lena's crouched shoulder. I point out the creased corner in the screenshot that matches my handwriting. Someone took a photo with a phone. I say, "Someone in the room." Maya taps through the messages with quick, decisive gestures. Her eyes sharpen. Her manner is warm and blunt at once. Maya says, "We need the digital trail. Send me everything. Who did you see with their phone out? Who was near you?" I try to answer, but every name I say lands like a pebble in a shallow pool that ripples into new suspicions. Lena was right there, I say. Harper, Ethan's assistant, was near the dessert table. Ethan's cousin had his phone out. We drive to a boutique cafe near the venue to confront Lena. The air outside is cool and hard. I keep my hands flat on my knees so they do not fumble, the diary tucked in my bag because I need that leather close. At the cafe, Lena sits with a latte and a rehearsed smile. When I say her name, she looks startled for a fraction of a second, and then folds her hands on the table as if she has been waiting for a script. Lena, I say, why did you read my diary page at the party? Claire, Lena says, and she speaks carefully. I didn't read it. She pauses. I only saw the sentence, and it was like a joke. Someone else must have taken a picture. Her voice drops a notch into evasive politeness. Someone else took a photo, she repeats. She avoids saying who. The conversation slips and she offers names like confetti and then picks them back up. Maya sits forward. Lena, did you take a picture? Maya asks. No. Lena says, faster. I would never. She searches for a word and does not find it. I put the page back. I didn't think. She pushes the words out like a shield. Her phone buzzes in her bag and she ignores it. I leave the cafe with more questions than answers. The evasive tone pulls doubt back into place. Doubt becomes suspicion. In the car, Maya says, Claire, we need to check people who had physical access and people who had motive. Those are not always the same. What motive? I ask. A wedding image, a chance to nudge things. Maya's voice is blunt. She says the name Harper with a particular hardness. Back at Maya's apartment, she spreads a row of phones across her kitchen table. Each phone is unlocked and displays a different messenger app. She arranges them methodically and starts typing while I watch the light over her hands. She calls Ethan's assistant Harper and gets voicemail. She forwards a screenshot to an account that archives shares. Harper offered to manage things, Maya says after a minute, and her voice is low. She reads a forwarded text aloud. I can handle any leaks. Trust me, my fingers find the page in my diary when Maya is on the phone. The corner of the paper has a faint grease mark where someone carried champagne. The missing page, the leaked sentence, and the forwarded text begin to draw a line that points to someone comfortable handling reputation. For a second, confusion and a new, sharper fear combine. Fear shifts into something else, betrayal. Betrayal because the person who offered to help is inside the orbit of those who said they would protect me. I call Ethan. Ethan. Harper sent a message offering to manage the screenshots, I say. He listens and then says, forward it to me. I will speak with Harper. Will you ask her how she got the photo? I ask. He hesitates. I will handle it. Claire. Let me manage the people who need managing. His reply is practical. And the way he says manager, the same word Ethan used earlier, makes me feel smaller. My chest tightens and I find it hard to breathe. At noon we gather again at the apartment, because Ethan's mother has arrived with a list of names and a polite, calculating expression. She is quiet until she sees the screenshots. Then she arranges her fingers on the table the way someone arranges chess pieces. We need to control the narrative immediately. She says, Ethan, speak with Harper. Claire, remove the post where you can. Lena, confirm you did not take this photo. The demands come with a steady calm. They assume a shared priority. The engagement image. I say, Mrs. Hale, it's not only the image. This was private. Someone took my diary. Someone violated my privacy. My voice is low. Ethan's mother narrows her eyes and answers, privacy is regrettable. We will limit damage. We will not let this derail the wedding preparations. Her words are an instruction, not comfort. The room's energy tightens. The tension becomes almost tactile. My hands clench the diary in my bag. When Ethan speaks to Harper on the phone, I can hear nothing but a clipped voice and faint papers. Later, Harper appears at our kitchen table with a neutral face and a folder. She says, I was trying to remove the screenshots. I have contacts who can help. Her posture is efficient, practiced. Maya narrows her eyes at Harper. Harper, did you take the picture or forward it? Maya asks. Harper answers with a pragmatic shrug. I didn't take it. I offered to manage it because it helps to move fast. Maya pushes. Who forwarded it first? Who uploaded it? Harper's fingers tap on the folder. She says, I received it and I forwarded it to my chain because the client wanted to know. The phrase the client makes my stomach drop. I ask, who is the client? Harper lifts her hand as if to steady a thought and says, "You know who pays for image work?" A twist appears that I had not expected. Harper's language suggests the leak might have been part of a controlled burn, or at minimum handled by someone with access to channels. My suspicion shifts again. Where earlier I suspected casual betrayal, a bridesmaid's careless phone. Now I realize this could have been deliberate exposure by someone who assumed control of the story as soon as it happened. I stand and go to my bedroom where the drawer sits slightly ajar. For the first time since I tucked it away, the leather diary is not there. The missing diary is a punch to the center of the room. I call out, "Has anyone moved my diary?" Ethan looks up and says, "I did not touch it, Claire." Maya's face goes white when I say the leather is gone. Who would take it? She asks. A furious cascade of questions follows. Ethan moves with measured gestures to the bookshelf and sifts through covered spines. Ethan's mother checks the guest list one more time. Lena denies access again. Harper's face is unreadable. The missing diary sharpens the conflict into something beyond reputation management. This is personal violation. My hands tremble and I pace in 2 straight lines between the bed and the window. Maya uncovers a forwarded chain on a backup account that shows Harper listed as a recipient and then as a forwarder. A line in the thread names a secondary account that belongs to a young cousin who liked to post gossip. The chain ends with a public upload. The concrete trail changes how I view every earlier moment. The twist is clear. Someone inside our circle did not just react, they copied and sent. After midnight, I force the confrontation I have been avoiding. Ethan and I stand in the living room under a single lamp. The lamp throws hard lines on the wooden floor. I put the diary's missing place beside the lamp like an accusation. "Ethan, who took my diary?" I ask. He runs a hand over his face. "Claire, we are not in a position to lose this wedding. You know that. If someone leaked it, we remove it. We handle it quietly," I say. "Ethan, you did not answer. Who took the diary? Who thought handling meant forwarding it to your assistant?" My voice catches and then steadies. He replies with measured, deliberate sentences and he says, "I prioritized containment. I asked Harper to manage it because she can reach the right people. My priority was to protect both of us." I stare at him. "Protect me by sharing my pages." I ask, "Protect me by assuming my words could be used as currency." He steps closer and his hands are steady. "Claire, I'm trying to keep the situation from blowing up. I thought action was necessary. You me to make decisions when you didn't want to." We fall into a rapid exchange that becomes the chapter's peak. "Ethan, you sent it to Harper." "Claire, I did not send the diary. I asked for help. Why would you prioritize impressions over me?" "I did not prioritize impressions over you. I prioritized a path to fix this." "Ethan, you said we will manage this, and then you did not ask me what that meant." "Claire, if I had asked every time, nothing would move. You made choices for me again." "Ethan, I made choices to keep our plans intact," he says. 3 quick lines of back and forth follow as the argument accelerates. "You chose them over me. I chose what I thought was best. You chose the story instead of the person." His jaw tightens. "Claire, listen." "No, you listen." "Where is my diary?" I say. His composure cracks for a second. The low, calm voice fractures into a line of exhaustion. "I will find it," he says. "I will speak with Harper." The sentence is both a promise and a practical instruction. In that confrontation, the emotional motion moves fast. Doubt to fear to betrayal to a brittle clarity that leaves my voice small but steady. I notice the physical signs. Ethan's hands tremble when he finally moves. Harper's folder is still on the table like an unclaimed evidence packet. Maya keeps her jaw set and watches both of us. The room is dense with choices. For the first time, I do not accept his management as an answer. Ethan offers a pragmatic compromise. We postpone certain public engagements and issue a controlled statement crafted to steer the conversation away from private details. He says the words as if arranging a schedule. He does not offer an apology that names the violation. He offers logistics. I feel the shape of what he values. Order, image, forward movement. I feel the absence of empathy in the small space between his sentences. That absence gives me a decision. I open the drawer where I usually hide my thin gold wedding band and find it there, warm from its hiding place. I set it on the table and let it sit between us like a neutral object that suddenly has weight. My decision forms not in rhetoric but in action. If the engagement will be managed without my consent, Then I will no longer let appearances alone decide how my life proceeds. I do not announce any grand pronouncements. I write a brief entry in the spare notebook on the kitchen counter to mark the decision. The words are concrete. I will contact a lawyer tomorrow. I will ask for the guest list in full. I will not sign anything until I understand who had access to my private writing. These sentences feel practical. They are choices. Before dawn, I sit on the small balcony with cold coffee and the diary open on my lap. The apartment is quiet. I ready a new entry with a steady pen. I write about the day in clear, factual sentences. The screenshots, the forwarded chain, Harper's message offering to manage, the missing diary. I write the word doubt again and then cross it and write suspicion, then betrayal. I let the act of writing make the feelings exact and usable rather than drifting. I take the engagement ring from my finger and place it on the table. I do not say anything aloud. I call Maya and say, "Maya, I am leaving it on the table. I need you to be with me now." "Claire," Maya says, "I am outside." "I will be there in 10. Her voice is quick and certain. I close the diary and slide it into my bag. The last concrete beat of the chapter is small and definitive. I leave the ring where it sits and I dial Maya. The line connects as she answers. I'm at the door. The boutique assistant shoved a printed diary page through the fitting room gap and asked, "Whose is this?" Betrayal tightened my throat before I could speak. Voices in the showroom folded into one sound. The page showed a sentence I had written at the party. I had never meant anyone else to read it. I pulled the satin over my shoulders and stepped out with the paper clutched to my palm. The mirror caught the gold in the dress and the way my mouth forced a smile. Behind the assistant, 3 bridesmaids held their breath. The word betrayal sat under every polite question. That suspicion moved me before words did. I felt my fingers go numb. I felt the room tilt toward exposure. "Claire." Someone at the back asked. The name landed like a reminder that this was not private anymore. I said, "It's mine," and heard the smallness in my voice. The assistant folded the sheet and set it on the counter as if it were evidence. A bridesmaid stepped forward and said, "We thought this was part of the guest book." Her voice tried to be casual and failed. Outside the dressing room, the showroom smelled of new fabric and perfume. I thought of the leather slipping from my clutch at the party and the bridesmaid who had crouched and read a line meant for ink and midnight. The memory came as a concrete detail. My clutch flap hit the polished floor. A bridesmaid's manicured fingers smoothed the page. I said the fact out loud now because silence would let the story grow teeth. "Do you want us to call someone?" the boutique manager asked. I pictured my phone lighting up with screenshots, the way my phone had vibrated against silk in the second chapter, and that image made my hands shake. Betrayal tightened again. I looked for Ethan in the crowd before I realized I was supposed to be choosing a veil. A reporter's phone slid into the showroom like a blade. He had waited beyond the velvet rope. He showed his badge and asked, "Is this about the diary Claire Bennett wrote?" The questions were names and accusations. I heard footsteps on marble heading toward the entrance. Ethan arrived at the boutique doorway in a navy overcoat, his jaw set, his eyes steady on me. He moved through the people with the precision I had learned to read as composure. He did not fall into frantic defense. He answered each reporter 2-word lines and left the rest to me. His distance felt deliberate. My mouth opened to ask him why my private page was printed and handed around, but the assistant beat me with a softer cruelty. She wrote, "Doubt sits heavy in my mouth," the assistant said, holding the page where everyone could see the line. The bridesmaids glanced at one another. The reporter raised his phone. A woman near the counter laughed and said, "So dramatic," and the laughter scattered. I felt the public change the meaning of that single sentence. What had been private revealed motives I hadn't intended to show. Ethan stepped between me and the reporters and said, "Claire, are you all right?" His voice was low. He used my name like a fact, not a question. I touched the thin gold band I kept hidden in a drawer and felt its absence like a secret removed. I said, "Ethan, did you show this to anyone?" My question came out a little too loud. He turned his face toward mine and kept his tone measured. "I did not show it, Claire. I would never." He stopped himself, the sentence narrowing. He watched the assistant and the bridesmaids. "We should leave," he said to me, and the offer carried command more than concern. Outside on the sidewalk the murmurs multiplied. A tabloid reporter blocked the taxi lane and asked about our engagement. Someone held up a phone with the picture that had started the spread. I heard the digital pings of messages being forwarded. Betrayal shifted into fear. The fear made my pulse quick and my jaw tight. My hands found Maya's arm before I saw her. "Maya," I said. She folded me into a hug that was quick and blunt. "Get me out of here," I told her. She put her sunglasses on the top of her head and pushed through the crowd to the curb. The taxi that Ethan hailed smelled of leather and cedar. I sat between Ethan and Maya in silence until the city passed in streaks of amber. In the back seat, Maya opened her phone and scrolled screenshots, she said, not looking at me. She showed me rows of small images. The page from the boutique, the same sentence on different feeds, then a thread of messages where someone had typed. She left it on her coat. I grabbed it. The words were short and precise. Suspicion rippled through my chest. I said, "Who typed that?" And Maya's fingers didn't stop moving. "Unknown user," she read, "but look at this. Someone posted a boutique receipt with a time stamp." The bridesmaid who grabbed the envelope appears on the footage. She flicked to a short SAC-TV clip from the party. On the screen, a bridesmaid lingered by the coat rack, fingers on a dark envelope. She left with a small smile. "Maya, Claire, this shifts things. Someone handled your coat. Someone took a page. That person had to be near you." Her voice sped up. "We need the receipt, the video clip, and a list of who touched your things." Her practical focus steadied me. Doubt changed into resolve. I had to know if the person who took my words did so alone. We the boutique to hold the printed page. The manager apologized and offered coffee. I folded my hands around the paper like a map I did not want to follow. Maya kept talking fast. "We call your bridesmaids now," she said. "We call the woman in that clip. We find out who left with an envelope." Her sentences were commands. I wanted to keep my diary as a private place, but the evidence had moved into public spaces. Ethan drove me to his apartment because he said we should be in a place where we could think. The lift smelled of lemon and his luxury watch gleamed. I watched him move through his kitchen with the habit he had of answering without emotion. He opened the refrigerator, took a bottle of water, and offered it to me. I accepted. "Did you ever show that page to anyone?" I repeated when we were alone in his living room. The room had clean lines and a silk throw. Ethan sat back and folded his hands where I could see his signet ring in the light. "No," he said. He spoke in the way he always managed, precise, controlled. "I would not share something of yours without asking." I leaned forward. "Then who had access to my coat at the party?" I asked. My voice did not tremble, but I could feel my jaw clench. "Who left with an envelope?" Ethan's face hardened in a way that tightened the room. "People move around at parties, Claire. Guests take things by accident. You know that." The words like a practiced explanation. "I will check the guest list. I will find out." His responses mapped out distance. "Factual, procedural, not personal," I said. "Ethan, I am not asking for a logistics report. I am asking if someone close to us took a page and handed it to a reporter." My anger stepped forward. "Did you ever mention my diary to anyone in your circle?" He looked at me then, longer than he had before. "I told one person that a private thing had been found. Claire," he admitted slowly. "I told my sister to tell me if anything came up. I did not say what it contained." His sentence tightened again. "I thought it would help if someone kept an eye on the feeds." His attempt to manage the story landed like a new kind of betrayal. I said his name because it made the space between us drawn and visible. "Ethan, that's not the same. Someone printed a line and handed it around. My words are circulating because they were taken. Did your sister, did she?" I stopped. I could feel my throat closing. Ethan rose and walked to the window. "Claire, I wanted to contain this," he said. "I wanted to make sure the story didn't spiral. I didn't expect anyone to print an excerpt." His shoulders showed the choice he had made. Control over intimacy. His answer left a new question. Who in our circle had handled my things? Maya would not let it rest there. She called the boutique and tracked a short SAC-TV clip that showed a bridesmaid lingering near the coat rack. Then she found a receipt that had been left in a taxi, the receipt timestamp matching the hour the bridesmaid left, with a small envelope. She emailed both files to me and placed a call to the woman who handled coat check at the venue. The external facts arrived in her voice like tools. A name appeared on the confirmation. Hannah Alvarez, bridesmaid. I had not noticed Hannah's presence around my coat that night, but the footage showed her reaching out, folding the paper into an envelope, then slipping it into her clutch. Maya, she left with an envelope, Claire. She didn't look like she was in a hurry. She looked deliberate. Her use of the word deliberate made my chest cold with suspicion. I called Hannah and asked to meet. We chose a small late-night cafe because the owner knew Maya and would not rush us. I sat at the table with the diary page face down on my palm. The cafe smelled of reheated pastries and coffee. The light above the table threw a hard circle. I watched Hannah sit opposite me with her fingers folded and her smile too practiced. "Hannah, did you take something from my coat at the party?" I asked. I felt the demand in my voice. My body leaned forward like I could pull the truth out by leaning. Hannah's hands fluttered. "I didn't mean harm," she said. "Claire, I thought you left it behind. I thought it was a note you wanted shared. Who gave it to you?" "Maya." Her voice was flat and quick. She used names like Annette, Ethan, Hannah, Claire, so the conversation could not slide into vagueness. Hannah hesitated. "I was asked," she said finally, and the confession arrived slow. "I was asked by someone to take anything personal and make sure the family didn't see it. I was told it would be handled discreetly. I felt the room constrict." "Who you?" I demanded. My voice lost politeness. Hannah's face went slack. "I was told it came from Ethan's side. I was told to remove anything that might cause trouble. I didn't know they'd print it. I thought it would stop at a private conversation." Her words kicked like small stones. Ethan's name felt heavy in the air. I turned to him because he had been quiet at the edge of the cafe. He had come at my call but stood near the door. His hands were in his coat pockets. "Ethan, did you ask Hannah to remove items?" I asked. My sentences had turned into short, sharp questions. He came to the table and sat slowly. "I asked Hannah to take anything that might become a scandal and hand it to my sister," he said, "not to a reporter." I asked for containment. His voice tried to pin the action to a single motive: protection. I pushed the diary page toward him. "Containment doesn't print sentences and sell them. Containment doesn't put a line in a tabloid." "Who gave Hannah the instruction to print this?" I said. My hand shook when I put the page down. Hannah looked at Ethan, then at me. "Someone at your sister's office thought a public excerpt would end gossip quickly," she said. "If an excerpt was out, people would stop making up stories. They printed the page, Claire. They thought giving a small line would control the narrative. The words rearranged everything I thought I knew." Maya leaned forward and said, "That's spin. That's manipulation. Who in that office printed it?" Her eyes were bright and mean. She named names from the guest list, people who worked in Ethan's sphere, and each name landed like a plausible lead. Ethan closed his eyes for a second, and when he opened them his face had the strain of someone holding a decision. I asked for containment. I did not ask to make it public. I did not think a line would be extracted and handed to reporters. His voice had that same controlled rhythm. The argument became a rapid exchange then. 3 quick sentences back and forth, where we all spoke over each other. "You don't get to make a private thing public," I said. "I tried to stop it, Ethan." "You helped start it," I answered. Maya cut in. "Slow down, listen. If Ethan's sister's office handed a line to the press, we can trace it." "Hannah, did they give you an envelope with a note? Did they tell you who to speak to?" Her insistence forced concrete details. Hannah rubbed her thumb along the rim of her cup. It was a small envelope with a typed note: "Remove anything personal and pass to family channels." I did that. I didn't pass it to a reporter. I swear I didn't. Her voice faltered and then steadied, but someone in the chain printed one line and uploaded it. Maya's phone vibrated. She checked and said, "There's a reply from the boutique security." They found an emailed receipt with a timestamp and the name of a prior assistant who visited the venue the next morning. That assistant has connections to the publication. The new data felt like a sharp tool. The mini cliffhanger arrived. If the prior assistant intentionally wrote the line, why would they do it? Silence stretched for a single breath. I felt the betrayal unfold into complexity. Not just a bridesmaid who read a page, not merely a sister who tried to watch feeds, but a small chain of choices that led to exposure. Each person had a hand in the movement of my words. My chest ached in recognizable physical ways. My hands tightened on the cup. My jaw ached from clenching. Why would someone do that? I asked. The question pushed past anger and into a narrower curiosity. Betrayal shifted again into a cold clarity. This was about control of the story, not protection of me. Ethan's mouth pressed into a line, because they thought it would be less harmful to publish a small portion than to let rumors grow. He it like a report and not an apology, they misjudged. Maya tapped replies into her phone and arranged for copies of the emails and the per assistant's phone logs. She called a journalist she trusted and said, "Hold that story until we can confirm the chain." Her practical moves turned tension into action. We were no longer only reacting. Hannah left the cafe with a folded apology under her breath. The owner gave her a look that said the place had no room for half confessions. When she walked away, Maya slid a small receipt and the keksevs still across the table to me. "Keep this," she said. "We will use it." I folded the documents into my hand the way one folds a map. Back in my apartment that night, I went to the balcony to breathe. The city lights were the usual scatter. I reopened my diary and put a pen to the page. My hand did not tremble now. It moved with a decision. In the previous chapters I had written doubt and watched it leak into other people's hands. Now I wrote a new line with clear letters. I will name the chain that took my words. I did not write a manifesto. I wrote facts. The evening, the clip, Hannah's actions, the per assistant's visit. My writing kept to what I could document. Maya sat across from me with coffee and spoke in small, precise sentences about contacting a lawyer and compiling evidence. Claire, let us make a timeline. We will show that your words were taken and passed along. We will prove intent where it exists. Her calm felt like a plan. Ethan texted a single question that blinked on my screen. "Are you okay?" The message sat between the documents and the diary. I did not answer immediately. I closed the diary and set the pen on top. I stood and walked to the balcony, where the air had a faint scent of lavender from the sachet in my drawer. The decision I had been shaping all evening arrived at my feet like a thing I could pick up. I dialed the number Maya had given me for a media lawyer. The line picked up and a voice asked for the details. I listed the names, the receipts, the clip, and the printed page. Each piece was a concrete object that tied back to a choice someone had made. The lawyer said, "We can send a letter. We can demand an explanation. We can force disclosure." Her voice was businesslike and immediate. I ended the call and took a slow breath. Betrayal had opened into procedure and accountability. I would not let the narrative be rewritten by omission. I had been the one who wrote the line about doubt in my diary. I would be the one to show how that partial line had been weaponized. Maya stayed late and left only when dawn made the street pale. She hugged me, quick and rough. "Call me if anything changes," she said. I watched her go and then returned to the small stack of documents on the table. I wrote a short new diary entry that recorded names, times, and the confession Hannah had given. The entry ended with a single, deliberate action. I slid the page back into the leather diary, tied the ribbon marker across the fold, and placed the diary into the drawer where I kept the thin gold band. I closed the drawer with a quiet click. The click was a small event, but it was connected to everything that had happened. The party, the clutch, the bridesmaid, the printed page, the prayer assistant, the choices made in my name. I sat on the balcony for a moment, and then I opened my phone and typed Ethan's name. I did not write anything emotional. I typed, "We need to talk about who in your circle handled my things. We need that list and the emails." The message left a clear next move. The night did not resolve my trust. It did, however, end with concrete steps. I had evidence. I had witnesses. I had a plan. I had a diary entry that turned hurt into action. That was the difference between doubt and choice. I closed the balcony door and heard the drawers catch line up with reality. Then I called Maya to tell her I would meet her at 11 to go over the timeline. The decision was small and practical, but it connected the evening's events to the next thing I would do. Later, when the city turned fully to morning, I lay down for a short rest with the leather diary tucked under my pillow. I felt tired in a physical way that was not only emotion. I had reclaimed the narrative tools I could prove. The chapter ended not with a speech about beginnings, but with a practical plan. Copies to a lawyer, the emails demanded, and a meeting at 11 with Maya. I woke before the phone alarm and, reaching for the diary, felt the ribbon marker under my fingers, and the thin gold band moved in the drawer like a small, quiet proof that some things remained mine. I closed the book, set it in the drawer, and left the apartment to find my next witness. The photographer's assistant set a wooden crate down beside the props table, and then a man I didn't recognize pushed through the crew and dropped a folded paper where my name might have landed. He slapped it hard enough that champagne glasses glanced and someone laughed. But the laugh died when the page opened and a line I had only written at midnight showed across the table. Doubt lived in the hollow under my ribs the way a bruise sits after you hit something. That doubt made me step forward instead of collapsing. I heard the stylist hiss, "Is that hers?" and the photographer swear under his breath. I kept moving because my hands would have scattered if I let them tremble in front of the cameras. The problem was clear. A private sentence was now on display, and everyone on the roof was waiting to see how I would protect what I had tried to keep private. I am Claire. I am 28, and for months I let a ring and rehearsed smiles become the public shape of my life. Tonight, a golden hour shoot on a rooftop should have looked like the kind of engagement story my mother would have liked. Lawn chairs, a floral arch, a photographer calling for one more look. But those things were not what mattered in the moment the paper hit the table. The central problem stabbed through the glam. Someone was turning my private writing into public material. That breach forced my first choice on the set. My doubt pushed me to do something public about something I had meant only for ink and night. "Claire, breathe." Maya, catching my elbow. Her voice was low and urgent. "Come with me." I saw Ethan at the edge of the set. He looked at the page with the same composed face he kept for boardroom crises. He folded his hands the way he always did when he wanted to show control. The crew clustered. A paparazzo aimed a lens like a pointer. I felt exposed and small. I let Maya pull me away because I could not answer a flood of cameras and the sentence on that paper at the same time. We moved behind the prop tent, and the photographer called for silence. The paparazzo laughed. "You should have kept your diary locked," he said. "Someone my name like a headline." I felt my breath shorten. Fear replaced doubt in my mouth. My fingers tightened on the strap of my clutch until leather creased. "He can't do that, Maya," and the rawness in her voice made me sit up straighter. Her anger pressed against the air like a fist. I had to decide whether to let Ethan take control of the narrative or to step into the light and speak. Ethan walked toward us with the slow certainty he always brought into rooms. He smiled at the crew in a way that felt practiced, and then he looked at me, and his eyes didn't ask my permission. "Claire," he said, "let's go inside. We'll handle this." His voice had a low calm that soothed the stylist but did not reach my chest. I kept the half smile I had learned to give Ethan. I said, "Who gave them this page?" I heard the word "who" like a small weapon. Ethan's answer was not a confession. "Someone from the boutique brought it," he said. "We'll hire security and ask them to remove him." He touched the back of my hand once, the way he did in public when he wanted to show he belonged to me. His fingers were cool. My doubt shifted into suspicion. I studied the line in his mouth. He was protecting the image the way he protected a balance sheet. "Do you think one of our guests leaked it?" I asked. "I don't know, Ethan, but we'll find out. For now, keep your composure." The command was polite. The command was not comfort. We left the roof in a car waiting behind the venue. The dark glass made the world a soft cutout. Ethan sat across from me with hands folded. I kept the clutch in my lap, though the page on the rooftop had been the image in my head since they showed it. "Ethan," I said again, "this is my writing." Someone read what I wrote at the party. Someone from the boutique shoved a page into a fitting room window, and a bridesmaid read it. Someone pressed a photo and started a thread. "How does that happen and you don't know?" My voice went taut. He looked at me with those steel, blue eyes that sorted facts like papers on a desk. "Claire, I dealt with the immediate problem on set. Ethan." I asked them to ignore it and offered them reassurance. I thought that would stop the spread long enough for us to manage the fallout privately. He set his jaw. "I didn't expect the screenshots to go out so fast." His calm was a buffer. My suspicion sharpened into frustration. "You didn't expect screenshots because you didn't check who had access," I said. "You didn't expect this because appearance mattered more than the person whose private thoughts are on that paper." Ethan's fingers tightened on his cuff. "Claire, that is not fair," he said. "I am trying to protect you." His words were precise. They did not land like shelter. We argued in the car with short lines because the night made long speeches impossible. Ethan, did you send anyone to the boutique? I asked. No, he said. Why would I? Because whoever handed them that page had a copy printed by the store's assistant. I named the assistant because I had read the messages Maya and I had pulled up when we returned to my apartment after the last leak. Then we'll speak with the boutique. Ethan, I'll call them now. He reached for his phone. I called someone at the boutique. They say it was an accident. Maya, who had found us again at the car, said, accident or not, someone posted it. Someone gave it to a photographer. Her voice flared. Maya, Ethan sharply. Not here. He kept the frame of the moment under control, but I could see his mind cataloging steps. Back in my apartment, Maya and I spread messages across the kitchen table like evidence. Screenshots, timestamps, a forwarded message from a bridesmaid named Hannah who had taken a photograph during the party. Maya tapped the phone. Look here, she said. Hannah posted it after she sent a photo to someone named. Then that person forwarded it to an account labeled Gala Coverage. The chain ran like a trail of receipts. My doubt shifted into fear. I realized this was not only careless friends but a web. Who is a? I asked. The boutique assistant said she passed it to the bridesmaid. Maya, Hannah says she was urged to share by someone who promised it needed to be public. Maya's hands moved quickly, fingers tapping the screen. Claire, who else had access at the party? She asked who handled invites, who printed programs, who took photographs for the family. I said names. My cousin, a woman from the bridal team, a stylist. They all got listed and then crossed out. Every name narrowed the possible betrayer until the list felt like a small trap. I forced myself to call Hannah and ask to meet. Hira's cafe smelled like burnt coffee and paper menace. I sat with my hands around a mug until she arrived. She looked guilty the way someone looks when they've taken a brittle step and realize the ground gave underfoot. Hannah, I said, why did you post the photo? She stared at the table. Claire, I didn't mean to cause harm, she said. I sent it because she needed a picture to show her boss. I thought she meant a candid for the agency. Her sentence landed like a stone. I asked, who is Nancy? She pushed her hair back and said, she works at the boutique. Nancy me to post. That answer pushed the blame outward again, but not to a final place. Did Nancy tell you who told her? I asked. It was from someone asking for publicity. Hannah, she wouldn't give me a name. It was someone higher up. My chest tightened. Maya slanted a look at me and then at Hannah. The confession that someone had urged Hannah to post was a small rupture and a mini cliffhanger that made the cafe feel too small. I leaned forward. Higher up how? I asked. Hannah shrugged with a forced innocence that made her look younger and meaner. It was part of a campaign. It would get people talking. The words campaign and talking suggested intention, not accident. My suspicion hardened into anger. I felt it in the way my jaw clenched. Back home, we traced messages again and discovered a payment notification to the boutique from a PR firm with the initials H. I read the line aloud. HR. Maya repeated it. They do wedding part. They get shares. Trending. We had a name of a firm, but not a person. That felt like a step forward and also like standing at the edge of a much longer floor. If someone hired PR to leak my diary, I said, why? Maya, maybe someone wants to control the narrative about you. Maybe they think scandal helps a brand. Maybe it's personal. Her voice was blunt. The emotion shifted then. Anger became a drive. We would find out who ordered the spread. The gala came faster than I expected. I wore the same muted rose dress from the rooftop shoot because the charity team had booked me for a press moment and I couldn't cancel without drawing more attention. My hands shook when I buttoned the dress. Ethan tucked his tie and told me to breathe. I will be beside you at the gala. His presence steadied the valet and the staff, but it didn't steady me. The journalist approached before the first course. He held a tablet with compiled excerpts and asked quick, clean questions. Claire, he said, can you comment on these pages attributed to your private diary? Are the excerpts authentic? The room leaned in. I felt the heat in my face, which tasted like the moment I had when the boutique assistant shoved a printed page through the fitting room last month. This time there was no private hiding place. I looked at Ethan. He opened his mouth and then closed it. He wanted to take control, but he also wanted to keep things from becoming a spectacle. The journalist's eyes flicked to the tablet again. I decided then not to be reduced to a quote. I stood and set the tablet on the table. Yes, I said, they are my words. The sentence was small, precise. I felt the room hold its breath, and the sound of cutlery scraped like a record scratch. I will not let my private writing be reshaped into gossip for anyone's advantage. The words were not a speech. They were a decision that cut through a swirl of cameras and insurance policies. Ethan's face tightened. "Claire, please," he said, "let me handle this." I didn't let him finish. "Ethan, you told me to keep my composure at the shoot," I said. "But you also withheld who might have had motive." "I will answer questions truthfully now." The journalist leaned forward. "Who do you think ordered the leak?" he asked. I had to choose a direction. Accuse without proof or say nothing and allow the narrative to be written for me. My refusal to be quiet was not dramatic. It was practical. Someone people to post my words so they would go viral. I said someone who wanted attention at my expense. I named the boutique and the firm's initials. The room made a small, shocked noise. Ethan's hand landed on the table. "Claire," he said low, "stop." There were 3 quick lines of back and forth, then sharp, clipped because the gala had ears. "Ethan, you used my calm as an argument before," I said. "You used our image to stop people from asking questions. I'm asking now because I want to know who wanted to make my writing a headline. You can't accuse without proof. Ethan, you can't destroy relationships on a hunch." "I am not destroying anything," I said. "I am asking for names." "Mayor, Claire is right. We have payment records, we have timestamps, who profited from making her private words public." The exchange was quick. The journalist started recording every phrase. People at the next table remembered the rooftop page. Someone mentioned the bridesmaid who had posted a photo. Someone whispered the boutique's name into a phone. The journalist's tablet lit with a new message. A woman I did not expect appeared at the edge of the room and said, "Ms. Bennett, I think we should talk in private." Her voice was formal and her shoes clicked with authority. She introduced herself as an events coordinator for the charity. She had a business card and a memory of logistics that tied her to the guest list and the press. I found a copy of those pages in a press packet earlier tonight. Someone left them in the prep room. Her eyes slid to Ethan. He pinched his lips. That moment was the chapter's high-pressure point. I felt my chest strike like a bell. The events coordinator's line changed everything. If pages were in a press packet, the leak had been curated and placed where a journalist would find them. The room hummed. I looked at Ethan and saw him weigh the next move. "Who left the packet?" I asked. "I can't say for sure," she said, "but it was arranged by the team's liaison." My hand closed around the stem of my glass until it grew warm. I realized then the leak had been orchestrated by someone who knew the mechanics of press distribution. My doubt had become a search, and the search had found a method. After the gala I left with Maya. Ethan stood at the ballroom door with a face that kept its lines even. "Claire, let me know," I said. "Not tonight." The decision was small and necessary. Maya insisted on walking me home. I carried the diary under my coat. At the apartment we sat at the kitchen table, and I opened the diary to the page I had written 3 weeks earlier about doubt. I read the sentences aloud so the words would not be stolen for gossip again. Maya listened and then put her hand on mine. "We will find who planned this," she said. "We will make sure whatever they wanted doesn't become the truth about you." Her tone was steady and warm. I let myself believe that for 5 breaths, we sorted the evidence. The boutique assistant's message, Hannah's admission, the Prathar firm's payment, and the events coordinator's account. Each piece changed how I understood the party, where the bridesmaid had first read a line of my diary. The twist was not a melodramatic reveal of a villain. It was the clear mechanical fact that someone had used industry tools, payments, press packets, suggestion to turn a private page into public content. That knowledge changed the target of my anger from friends who had been careless to whoever had planned the leak. It was both a relief and a cold tightening. I had been searching for a single face. Now I had to pursue a chain. The night narrowed to a simple action. I took the thin gold band from the drawer where I hid it and laid it on the open page. It was the band I had kept from the engagement when the ring itself felt too public to symbolize private consent. I let my fingers rest on the metal. My decision consolidated into a concrete thing. I would not let my life be framed by other people's publicity needs. I would ask questions at boardrooms and boutiques. I would call the pries firm and speak to whoever authorized the payment. I would confront Nancy at the boutique with the evidence. I would ask Ethan to tell me plainly whether he knew more than he had said tonight. The last lines I wrote before sleep were short and careful. I closed the diary and set the band beside it. I left the page open where I had read it at the table so the paper would not be hidden the way my words had been hidden before they were stolen. Then I stood and dialed the number Maya had given me for a contact at the pries firm. The phone rang 3 times and then a recorded voice answered. I pressed hang. The chapter ended on the phone's silent screen and a decision made aloud. I would pursue the people who had used my words. The diary lay open, the ring at its edge, and I breathed in until my lungs answered back with the next step. A waiter placed a folded envelope on the engagement cake and the guest beside me ripped it open. Glasses clinked. Someone laughed. Then a printed page slid free and the ballroom went quiet. Betrayal tightened my throat before I could speak. The page named me and quoted a line I had written in private. The same sentence that had been sent to my phone 2 nights ago, and the sentence someone shoved under the fitting room curtain. I pressed the leather diary I had kept in my bag against my ribs, as if the cover might hold me together. I stepped forward because that is what people do when an accusation lands in the center of a room. My heels tapped on the marble as I moved. I saw Ethan's hand clamp his jaw, saw Maya already at my elbow, her eyes hard and careful. The central problem was plain. Someone had taken what I wrote and turned it into a public weapon. That exposure threatened the engagement, the family reputations, and what little control I had left over my own words. The room's lights picked out faces, friends, relatives, photographers, but I only noticed the smear of adhesive where the envelope had stuck to frosting. I had been keeping a secret in those pages, the difference between how I smiled at parties and what I wrote at night. Tonight the secret had been made a spectacle. I felt a first shift. Doubt tightened into panic when I realized I could not stop people reading aloud what I had never meant them to hear. Maya's voice cut through the hush. "Claire, are these yours?" she asked, and she said my name so everyone could hear. Her tone was blunt. Her eyes didn't soften. She had seen the phone screenshots 2 nights earlier and the boutique handout the day before. She had also listened when I tried to brush it off. I heard myself say yes before I had shaped the next thought. Saying the word moved me from private fear toward public action. Ethan's hand found my elbow and steered me toward the balcony. Cameras turned. A woman in a sequined dress pointed at the cake and mouthed something I couldn't catch. On the balcony, the music thinned and the hotel's air conditioning clicked in a steady rhythm. I could feel guests watching us. I could feel my mouth dry. The second emotion shift arrived. Fear folded into a quiet, hard resolve. If someone had weaponized my diary, I would not let them define me from the sidelines. "Ethan, Claire, stop. This is sabotage. We'll handle it." His voice was low. He used my name the way he always did in public, to claim me beneath the bright room. I felt anger at the phrasing. "Handle it how, Ethan?" I asked, by hiding it, by pretending nothing happened. I said his name back and let each syllable land. He tightened his grip. "Not here," he said. "Not like this." His jaw moved. He sounded controlled, like water behind glass. I stepped away and faced him. "Ethan, you saw the page. You know what it says. Did you pay someone to print it?" My voice rose. The balcony's edge pressed against my hip. He gave a short laugh that had no humor. "Claire, stop. Your family and mine, my family and yours," I cut in. "Whoever did this put my words on a cake. Whose side are you on?" My question hung in the open air. He looked at me as if dividing a ledger. "I am on the side of the engagement, Claire. I am on the side of our future. This could ruin us." His fingers were rigid at his side. I said his name again, quieter. "Is the future ours, Ethan, or is it an image for other people to applaud?" He did not answer that at once. The argument was short and sharp. Voices from below rose in speculation. Maya returned to the balcony with a woman at her side. A crew assistant named Marco, mud on his shoes, a printout still between his fingers. He was paid, Maya, and she held out a receipt. Marco found this tucked into his bag. "It names Vivian Hale," she the surname, so the syllables spread into the ballroom like a new ripple. I tasted metal in my mouth. Vivian Hale was Ethan's mother. I remembered the morning in Chapter 2 when my phone buzzed with screenshots. I remembered the boutique assistant in Chapter 3 pushing paper through the curtain. I remembered the man from the photographer's crew dropping a folded page amid the props. They were not random accidents anymore. My emotions flipped again. From panic to a brittle clarity, I felt exposed, yes, but now I also felt fury. Vivian did this, I said. I said the name slowly. Ethan's face blanched. He turned toward the ballroom as if the lights there could answer for him. No, he said at first, and then, she worries about our family. She hates messy things. He did not deny ownership of the act. He tried a soft explanation and failed. I found my voice and moved back inside. On the ballroom floor, Vivian tried to interrupt before I reached the microphone. She wore her usual calm, the silk scarf wound at her throat. Claire, this is, she began. The room leaned toward her because she had always given people composed sentences and safe conclusions. I raised the microphone. The noise stilled. I heard my own pulse in my ears. My hands were steadier than I expected. The pages are mine, I said plainly. I used the word mine to reclaim the property of those sentences. This is my diary. My voice did not tremble. I turned the page over with my thumb and read 3 lines I had written in the hotel room the night before. I laugh when people compliment the ring. I leave before dessert because I need to be alone. I do not know if the engagement is for me or for everyone else. I read slowly so the words could hang. The room held its breath. Ethan's face went distant. Vivian's lips thinned. Guests shifted in their seats like a flock. Maya stood behind me with her camera slung and her fists unclenched but ready. A coupling of shame and relief moved through me. Shame because private frustrations were now public. Relief because I had chosen how they would be heard. That decision mattered. It changed who could speak for me. Vivian sharp, Claire, you didn't have to air this here. She used my name the way a judge uses a docket number. This was cruel and unnecessary. People around us murmured in agreement. I kept reading. I have been performing. I don't know if I can keep performing for a life that isn't mine. My throat tightened on the last line and I forced out the words. If you want to break our engagement because my writing is messy, then say it. Say it now. The line landed like a thrown glove. Ethan moved before he thought. Claire, he said, don't do this to my mother. My mother. As if that were an argument that could close the page. Maya's hand found my back and squeezed. The ballroom split between those who would protect family reputation and those who felt a sudden, uneasy sympathy for the woman who had read things out loud in public. I felt the room's judgment like heat. Then Marco stepped forward with the receipt in his hand. Vivian paid me, he said, and the directness broke a line of pretense. There was a staccato of questions from the front tables. Marco explained in plain sentences how someone had handed him a sealed envelope and cash in the service corridor earlier. It was to protect the event, he said. It would make a point. Maya had his paper. I watched Vivian's face drain of color. Vivian's voice went high for the first time. This is absurd. Marco, you are lying. I would never. Ethan stepped between his mother and me. My name soft but urgent. Stop, Claire. Please. The word please was like a door trying to close. I felt an internal shift again. Betrayal curdled into a sorrow that I had not expected. I had not wanted to humiliate Vivian. I wanted the leak to stop and for the person responsible to be known. The fact that the person responsible was inside Ethan's family changed everything. I asked Ethan, why didn't you tell me about tension with her? Why didn't you tell me if she distrusted me? He looked at his hands and then up at me. I told you she and I had disagreements, he said. We never wanted to make this public. His voice was small. I thought I could manage it, Maya. Ethan, Claire shouldn't be managed. Claire should be listened to. That sentence landed. People turned to look at Ethan like they expected him to pick a posture. We had a rapid exchange. Then, Ethan, did Vivian pay Marco? No, I didn't know. Then why did you let her control things? Because she raised me to avoid scandal. That is not an answer. Claire, you remaking this worse here. Please isn't an answer either, Ethan. That was a quick, tight string of back and forth lines. It made the argument crisp in the room. Guests leaned in. Friends glanced at their plates. I said his name each time to keep the argument anchored. Maya moved to the center of the floor and called out, this is about more than a page. This is about who gets to decide what you are allowed to feel. Claire, people began to murmur. Maya's voice had the quick, bright cadence it always did when she wanted attention on a point. Claire, she said to me, say what you want to say. Let them hear you without them turning it into gossip. I swallowed and kept reading one more paragraph from the diary. My fingers tightened on the paper. The passage I read told the truth about my habit of leaving early, about how I'd kept a hidden gold band in a drawer, about how I wrote to remind myself of who I was when I wasn't performing. When I read the line about the ring hidden in a drawer, I saw faces change. Some people looked puzzled. Others looked offended on my behalf. That small reveal was concrete, a ring kept private, a symbol of uncertainty made physical. It was the clearest proof that my inner life did not match our staged image. Vivian tried to speak over me and Ethan reached for her arm. She yanked away. You shouldn't have made that private thing public, Claire. She snapped. You should have come to me. The claim had brittle righteousness. Vivian. You paid to humiliate me, I said calmly. I want to know why. She slammed a hand to the table nearby. I wanted to protect my son. I thought I was helping him avoid a mistake. Her eyes flicked to Ethan for validation. Ethan's shoulders tightened. Mother, I asked you not to. His voice broke. For the first time in public he looked like a man with a private tremor. I asked you to trust me. I asked you to trust us. He used the word us, and for one breath it sounded like a pledge. Then he turned to me and said, Claire, I never wanted to hurt you. I could see a crease between his brows where he had been holding pieces together. A woman from the next table stood up and said, if she wrote it, she has every right to say it. If you worried Vivian, you should have spoken privately. A murmured chorus backed her. Vivian's face went quieter. The room's loyalties shifted visibly as people heard the diary in Claire's own voice. That public siding was the twist I had not been sure I would get. It was the plot twist that changed how I and everyone else understood the earlier leaks. The motive had been control, not protection. After the public unmasking and the immediate fallout, Ethan left the ballroom. He walked out without a word, his shoulders set, his face blank. He moved through the corridor like a man stepping into argument. The door clicked behind him. People glanced at each other and then turned their attention back to me. Maya stayed close. I'll go after him, she said. Let me. I shook my head. No, he needs time. He'll come back when he can think without cameras. Maya didn't look convinced. Outside the ballroom, in a service corridor off the kitchen, Marco had already been questioned by a hotel manager. Maya had cornered him there earlier and had forced the receipt from his jacket. She me later how he had fumbled and said, she handed me cash and told me to make a point. I didn't read the name until later. That detail, Marco's admission, was the mid-chapter mini-cliffhanger that pushed things forward. The culprit was not a stranger but someone inside Ethan's family. It made the stakes personal in a way a random leak never could. I waited in the sitting room of our suite because the hotel staff steered us there when the journalists pressed for statements. The room smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and the scent of hotel linen. Ethan returned at midnight. He stood in the doorway for a full minute and did not come in. Then he crossed the room and closed the door behind him. He looked at me as if counting the cost. Claire, he said, I wanted to keep peace. I didn't want to ask my mother to step back publicly. He sat on the edge of the sofa and looked smaller than I had ever seen him. I told him, you didn't tell me because you thought you could carry it alone. You treated my inbox like an inventory, Ethan. You assumed I wouldn't need answers. He flinched at that. I didn't know how to make it right without tearing my family apart, he said. I thought protecting the line was the same as protecting you. That sentence felt like an admission and not an apology. I asked, which are you protecting, me or the line? He stared at his hands, then looked up. I want to protect both, he said. His voice was rawer than in the ballroom. We argued in short, sharp exchanges. Ethan, I said, say my name and tell me how you will fix this. Claire, I will talk to my mother. I will tell her she was wrong. Say it now. Say, Vivian, you were wrong. He hesitated. The room had been a courtroom. Now it was a living room where decisions needed action. He took a breath. Vivian, you were wrong, he said, as if the words hurt as they left him. I don't want you to decide for me anymore. His voice cracked when he said me. I felt a small warmness, hope perhaps that was not a resolution but a foothold. Vivian called the next morning and asked to meet. She arrived at the suite with a list of people whose faces showed disapproval and a posture that had been trained for confrontation. Claire, I thought I was helping. I won't apologize if it destroys my son. I will not be the reason he regrets our family's name. Her hands fluttered against the silk of her scarf when she said regrets. I answered, you humiliated me to protect the family image. You made my private words a public weapon. That is betrayal. I used the word because it was the only precise term for someone who had hidden behind propriety and made a private wound public. She blinked. Ethan watched from a chair. Betrayal. She repeated, and the words sounded like a disruption. I didn't mean to betray you. I wanted to prevent a rash decision, I said. Then tell me who asked you to decide for me. Tell me why you thought the engagement was a risk only you could see. She looked at Ethan. He looked away. Then she said quietly, because I saw him withdraw. I feared he would leave her alone to make the choice. I thought intervention was better than regret. Her answer showed fear, not malice. It did not erase what she had done. We had a long conversation that was not neat. Ethan, I didn't stop her because I didn't have the language to say no to her. She has managed my life in ways I only see now. Maya sat with us after she arrived and watched, interjecting short, sharp questions that kept the conversation honest. Vivian, Maya, doesn't Claire's voice matter? Vivian's answer was quiet. It should have. I failed to ask. The sentence was small, but it was the beginning of accountability. By noon we had a practical plan. Ethan would call his mother and tell her to withdraw from planning and public commentary around our wedding. He would ask her to apologize publicly for the stunt and privately to me if she could. We agreed he would pause all family announcements until we had a conversation without press. Maya insisted on protective measures. She had already spoken to a friend in the boutique and asked them to secure any pages and to stop distributing anything without Claire's consent. Marco had been removed from the event crew. The decisions were concrete actions, they were not speeches. Before Ethan made the phone call, he turned to me and said, Claire, I can't take away how this landed. I can only show up and try not to let it happen again, I said. Then show up. Say my name when you defend me. Tell your mother she can't decide what I feel. He repeated my name slowly. Claire, I will do that. His tone carried a promise rather than a flourish. I felt the last emotion shift. Anger softened into cautious willingness to try. At dawn I walked onto the balcony with the diary. The hotel's lights were dimming as staff flipped switches. I placed the leather book open on the railing where the pages could be seen. I left it there not as spectacle but as a statement. Those were my sentences. They had been printed, read and judged. Now they could be visible by my choice. Maya stood beside me and did not speak. We watched a delivery van pull away in the street below and heard a doorman lock a door, the sound distinct and final. Ethan knocked twice and then came out to the balcony. He stood at a distance and looked at the open pages. I read the one about leaving before dessert, he said quietly. I didn't know, I said. You mean you loved me in front of cameras. Tell me now what that means without the cameras. He looked at the diary and then back at me. It means I will listen to you before I decide for you. It means I won't let anyone make public of your private words again. My name, it sounded steady. We did not kiss, we did not sign papers. We did not erase what had happened. But we made choices that morning. Maya placed her hand on my arm and said, when you want to close the diary, I will help you bind the pages. But don't let anyone else pick your words. Her voice was low and fierce. I smiled with the small, brittle smile I've used in crowds and then closed the diary to test the clasp. The last scene of the night was practical. Ethan called his mother in the other room and asked her to apologize in writing and to step back. I heard Vivian's voice through the thin hotel door, softer than before. I could not hear the exact words, but I heard Ethan respond with my name at least twice. Later he sat beside me without touching my hand and read aloud a short apology his mother had written. She is sorry. She won't be at the head table until we both agree. That concrete decision felt like a small repair. I left the diary open on the balcony rail for the morning sky to find it. Then I walked out with Maya at my side. The public conflict had been resolved into action. An admission from Vivian. a promise from Ethan, and a plan from Maya and me to keep my words under my control unless I chose otherwise. The exposure had forced us to choose who we were in front of other people. I closed the door behind me, but not on the event. The diary remained visible for anyone who looked, and that was the final, practical beat of the chapter. A book left open where a conversation could begin for whoever cared to read it. The chapter ends on a concrete action, the diary left on the railing, and a clear change. Ethan his mother to step back and to apologize, and I had spoken publicly for myself. That was the resolution of the immediate conflict. I would not pretend everything was fixed, but decisions had been made, and that is not the same as silence.